Today we're cooking pork tenderloin, which is so tender, it's in the name. A great value, you get a lot of bang for your buck, and it's a quick, easy, and healthy cook. It's like a blank canvas. It will take on a whole bunch of different flavors. Before we cook it in the oven, we have to remove the silver skin right there. This is the part that is, it's just not edible. It's chewy, so we just want to go ahead and get that off. I'm sure you've seen it in some other videos, but I'll show you right here. Just cut that way, peel it back, go there. You want to try not to remove any of the meat. Just this silver skin part. It's chewy, it's like bubble gum in your mouth. The one thing you're going to want to remember though when you're cooking this is that pork tenderloin is not pork loin. Totally different. A pork loin is like 18, 20 pound Flintstone behemoth cut of meat. When you buy pork tenderloin, as we're showing now, typically 2 of them come per bag. And I like to buy them, a lot of them are sold already seasoned. I like to buy them unseasoned and do it myself. I just think they have a better flavor. That right there is the silver skin. And that part is just not going to be edible. After you do this for a while, it'll become a little easier to tell what's silver skin and what's just fat. And the fat is fine to leave on. Why? Because the fat is where it's at. That's where pork, meat in general, gets a lot of its flavor. Okay, now that we've removed the silver skin, we're gonna go ahead and season these. Just using a little bit of olive oil, lightly coated on both, on all sides. There is nothing overly sexual about this. Next up, we have our friends at Real Salt sent us their SPG, salt, pepper, garlic. Not an endorsement, not a paid post, but as you can see, I do like the product and have used it often. I'm gonna go ahead and season this on all sides. And we're gonna season a little bit of the countertop too while we're at it. Nothing wrong with that. What you wanna do is really season this liberally. Now I'm sure that word triggers some of you, but what I really mean is coat it thoroughly. There's plenty of seasoning on here. Unless you really douse it, you're not going to over season it. So now I have that seasoned, what I like to do next is just add a little paprika. It gives it a beautiful color as it cooks. While this is what I season it with, feel free to use whatever you like. As I mentioned earlier, this pork tenderloin really is a blank canvas. Typically called the other white meat, although as you can see, it definitely is not white. That's the result of a great advertising campaign sometime in the 90s. But it does, like chicken, take on a myriad of flavors very well. So experiment, find what you like. All right, now that these are seasoned, I'm gonna go wash my hands and meet me over at the oven. Okay, I've cooked pork tenderloin a bunch of different ways. On the stove, I've baked it, grilled it, sous vide it. Today, I'm going to try something I haven't done before, which is to broil it directly. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before you even turn on your broiler, there's one step you need to take, so follow me. When you broil in your oven, most of them are going to have the broiling element towards the top of the stove. As you can see, there are these 2 rings that have lines that go all the way towards the back. And we have a couple of different racks. The key with broiling anything, to getting as good a crust as you possibly can on it, is to get the meat as close as possible to the broiling element. So before you even start your oven, you kind of want to take a test to see how close you are. Today, I'm cooking with a cast iron skillet, so let's slide it in. Now, you can see there's still several inches between that cooking element and where the meat will be resting inside of the pan. So how do I get it closer? Well, this is the top rack for that rack holder, if that makes any sense. But that's as high as that rack can go. So a little trick I like to use is a cookie sheet to help elevate our cooking surface. Flip it over, slide it in, and there we go. We're much closer to that heating element than we were before. Now that we have that figured out, let's turn on the broiler. My oven, like many others, has 2 settings, high and low. You wanna go with a high setting. The other thing you wanna do, the other tip I would give you is to leave your oven door open. If you keep it closed, that will actually shut down the heating element after it gets to a certain point. Leaving it open will allow that broiler to run continuously. So I have the pan in there and I'm letting it get nice and hot. Today I'm using a cast iron skillet, and I'm using that because it really, I think, retains heat very nicely as it cooks. So it's gonna get hot, I'm gonna drop the pork tenderloin in there, we're gonna hear that beautiful sear that sounds like tasty. But if you don't have this, you can use a broiling pan, and that's how I've broiled most things in a broiling pan. It's the thing with the little slots at top and the little catching tray right below. Perfectly acceptable. You don't have either one of those, you could even put it directly on a cookie tray. This should take about 4 or 5 minutes to heat. I'm gonna grab a beer and I'll be right back. All right, we have a little smoke on this pan. Let's get it out. Nice and hot. Might set off the fire alarm, but are you even cooking right if you're not setting off the fire alarm? Next, we're gonna grab our 2 pieces of meat and drop them right in the pan. Oh, listen to that sear. We're gonna have to curve it a little bit to make it fit. All right, now that those are in, and this is one of the reasons why I'm using the cast iron skillet instead of the broiling pan, because it holds that heat to really promote that nice sear, that nice crunch on the exterior. Let's get it back in. Okay, quick note on this. Because we are cooking 2 pieces of meat in here, I want to show you how I have this set up inside the oven. Come take a look. So there's 2 heating elements, as I mentioned earlier, and I situated the pan right in the middle of both to promote a nice even cook. I'm gonna let it sear for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna give it a flip and just keep flipping until they reach an internal temperature of about 140 to 145 degrees. And as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure you keep this oven door open to keep that heating element on as it cooks. We're at 4 minutes total cook time. We're getting some really nice color. I'm gonna give them another 1/3 of a turn and take a temperature reading, see where we're at. So a long way to go. Let's throw them back in. One thing I want to mention as this is sort of finalizing its cook is if you start to notice it's getting too much color as it cooks, it's too close to the broiler, it's getting too hot, don't worry. All you need to do is turn off your broiler, move the food down to a lower rack, and then turn this on to bake to about 425 degrees and let it finish out the process. How long it's all going to take is dependent upon so many factors, I don't even want to give you a guide. The best thing you can do is make sure you keep an instant read thermometer in your home to make sure you cook meat perfectly every single time. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. The smaller one is at temperature, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull this one off. And then I'm gonna put this big one in. It's a little bit thicker. I'm gonna give it a few more minutes in there. It's getting a nice caramelized color. It looks really good. So as I said earlier, I've never tried to cook pork tenderloin this way. The total cook time was about 18 minutes from beginning to end, and that include the time that I pulled it out, was sort of talking to the camera, letting you guys know what I was doing. I flipped it every 2 minutes, just not wanting to burn it. I removed the meat at an internal temperature of about 143 degrees. This side over here, the thin side, was closer to 150, and I think that's to be expected anytime you have a piece of meat that you're cooking that's just not uniformly shaped. When I look at the color on this thing, I'm really pleased with it. It has that look like it was grilled. We get some of that dark charring, but not burnt. It's not overly done. It creates a nice Maillard reaction where that heat creates that nice brown exterior. Let's see how it looks on the inside. Cooked all the way through, just like that. Tastes good. See, I took too big of a bite. Okay, so I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think the main benefits to this particular cooking method over others are one, the color. Of course, you're gonna get that on the grill, not necessarily in the oven alone. But it's simple, it's one pan in and out, and it's the fastest way of cooked pork tenderloin, end to end done in 18 minutes. Give it a shot for yourself. Let us know how you like it in the comments below. And thanks for continuing to follow along our food journey of cooking meat made easy. I'll see you soon.